voice. So, before we go into questions, I'm going to let you ask both of our congressional candidates questions at once, so I want to introduce the second congressional candidate running against Representative Doug Collins, Josh McCall.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Marisa. And thank all of you for showing up today. I know that the reason all of us are out here today, if you look over to my right, you will see images of human beings who are no longer with us. And I would like to take just a moment, for us to meditate and focus on their lives, what they meant, and what they meant going forward. Thank you. This morning, when I was driving up to Gilmer County in LJ to meet with some other Democrats, I was thinking about how beautiful this day is, and I was thinking about this speech, and I couldn't help but remember what it must be like for the families of those children today on a beautiful day like this. Those families will never see another beautiful day, another special moment without that wound, that old wound opening up again. That one lone individual with a nightmare in his heart and his finger on a trigger was able to walk into a school, purchase a weapon, and end all of those lives. I watched as our nation came together for this brief, beautiful moment. It was tragic. It was heartbreaking. If you're like me, you cried several times over the next few days over those poor parents weeping their hearts out because their children were no longer with them. And I wept with them, and I listened to them. And for that moment, we were all united as a nation. We just knew that finally, after all of these years, all of these lives snuffed out needlessly, every day, in every community, that finally our government would listen. Sadly, they didn't. You know, Doug Collins, who works or does something or other across the square over here, likes to quote the Bible sometimes. He used to be a preacher. And I wanted to welcome all of you today, no matter what your faith is, because as a Christian, I believe in loving my neighbor and cherishing you just as you are. But I teach Sunday school, and I'd like to talk today about a passage in the Bible that's known as the slaughter of the innocents. This is when a king, sitting in his palace on his royal throne in Jerusalem, heard a rumor about the birth of Jesus of Nazareth. And if you read the New Testament, the Gospel of Matthew, it says that when Herod heard these things, these rumors, his heart was troubled. Imagine that. This king, surrounded by opulence, by his own palace, by armed guards and mercenaries, troubled by the birth of a poor little baby. I thought about that passage again this week, because what these Parkland students have done and what you have done, we have awakened a sleeping dragon. The NRA was silent for just a day or two, and then they came out in full force because, like Doug Collins and like the NRA, these people who are tied to power and profit just like Herod, whose power and profit are threatened by the lives of these tender, vulnerable young people who are marching in our streets. Just like those Herods of past, we have hundreds of Herods sitting in Washington today, paying blood money to people like Doug Collins to make sure that those gun sales do not slow down one bit. And just like Herod long ago, their hearts are troubled, not by the deaths of the Parkland students, not by the one toddler a week that shoots someone in this nation, not by the 26,000 deaths of children since 1999, 8 9/11s put together. Not troubled by those deaths, but troubled because their power and their profit were threatened by voices of young people standing up simply to say, I want to go to school without becoming the target of the next Adam Lanza, the next Nicholas Cruz. Because unfortunately, the power of Doug Collins and the profit of the NRA are tied directly to the availability of the AR-15 to the next Nicholas Cruz to go easily to the next gun shop and buy his weapon. That's why the NRA and Doug Collins have come out so strongly against these Parkland students, because they're threatened. That's what happens when you threaten power. But I have a solution. I don't listen to the gun lobby. I listened to the victims. And so if these solutions come to you from me, it's only because I'm echoing the voice of the victims. They understand the real situation in our society. Those who suffer are always the voices of truth in any society. I have listened to them. The first one, an easy one, 92% of all gun owners want us to pass universal background checks with a flagging system so that if the next Nicholas Cruz puts on YouTube, I want to grow up and be a professional school shooter, we can go and confiscate his weapons. A well-regulated militia does not allow every violent person that wants to walk in and easily, conveniently buy a weapon. Number two, we have got to take our homes more seriously. This is a domestic and national security issue. Right now, there is no law, national law, telling people to keep your guns secure from children. One toddler every week shoots someone in this country. We need to educate gun owners, and we need to pass a law saying that when you buy this weapon, you are signing this agreement, I am criminally liable. If I have a minor in my home, I must also buy, at the very least, a trigger lock to go with this weapon when I purchase this weapon for any transfer of any firearm. And finally, number three, the toughest one, and I'll have to tell you my journey very quickly about this. I was hesitant about talking about an assault rifle ban at first. I was worried that maybe talking about an assault weapons ban would jeopardize our chances of my first two ideas. And I was making calculations like any human being will do. But I listened to the father of one of the Parkland victims who stood up and talked to Marco Rubio, who will never have the courage of his convictions, but will always have the courage of his corruption. And he demanded, and he said, my little girl would still be alive today if Nicholas Cruz did not have detachable magazines to put on that AR-15. So listening to that victim, I said, I cannot hesitate. This is a matter of conscience. This is not a matter of convenience or strategy. So the third policy is, those AR-15 weapons, the reason they're so dangerous is because of that detachable magazine combined with the 223 5.56. I think we need to have limits on muzzle velocity in combination with a detachable magazine. That would have saved lives already. Thank you for coming out here today. Stand with us. The law in a civilized country is supposed to be a barrier between us and a dangerous, chaotic world. Help me make civilized, sensible, well-regulated militia laws. Thank you.